we talk about different generations that are alive today, what comes to mind when I say Gen Z or Gen Alpha? Do you feel optimistic or maybe not so much? Today we're going to be talking about some things that our youth ministry is doing and how they are reaching those generations. So with that in mind, welcome to the Pure Heart Church podcast. I am Zach Good. I am the producer on this podcast, and I think we have a great episode for you today. So whether you're part of our church community or just tuning in, we are so glad that you decided to listen in with us today. So let's jump right in with our hosts, Heath Bottomley and Matt Nystrom.
Hey, thanks for joining us for the Pure Heart Church podcast. We've got a great podcast set up for you this week. It's got a lot of fun stuff. Fun. And the point of all of this is to really make sure that you get a behind-the-scenes look of Pure Heart Church, what's happening, the ministry elements, why we do what we do, and so much more. But really, one of the things we want to do is tackle topics that are things that are familiar to everyone, with stuff that we're all dealing with, because we're all dealing with the culture around us. We're all dealing with elements in our day-to-day lives, and it's a shared experience. Yeah. You know, we see the prices of gas going up. We see elements, uncertainty in our country.
Cars are expensive.
Cars are expensive, but
food's expensive.
But something that's applicable to a lot of people who are looking at maybe out of the house for the first time on their own. Mm-hmm. Rent prices have gone through the roof.
It is bananas. Like I have a 1,600 square foot house. It's not, it's not super big. It fits our family. I looked at the house next to us, the same size, and it is more than double the price of our mortgage.
I
to rent a house,
for that,
and it's not that fits. Like it's a house that you just go like, how can people afford this? Like this is more than most people make.
I remember like my first apartment. Well,
that's what I was going to ask you. Like, what was your first apartment?
My first apartment. So this just tells you was a single bedroom apartment with three guys.
Mr. Rich here with the single bedroom apartment.
Yeah, but three guys were sharing this. Okay, and so we would actually rotate who got the room. You know.
Oh, so you didn't have like bunk beds in it, or
no? Because that would have been weird. Three single guys living in a one-bedroom apartment. That's not weird. I feel like that's
the beginning of a joke or a sitcom or something like that.
But every couple of months, we would swap out who would get to have the bedroom to themselves, and everyone else would be out on a couch or sleep or so, that type of thing, or whatever. But that one was, I think that was $500 a month. Yeah. So I got into my first apartment, and it was just, I think it's right around the 2000 year mark.
Okay.
And it was $600 a month, and then I knew that I was going to have to spend.
Your first one by yourself.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Just me, and I was like, and it was a luxury apartment. Ooh, yeah. I'm like, I'm living. I've moved up to a deluxe apartment in the sky. And it was like, and I knew what utilities were going to be like another $100 with everything else or whatever. And that was a stretch.
Yeah.
That was a big stretch. But I look at it now, I'm going, like, I could rent out rooms just in my house and basically pay for my mortgage.
Yeah. You can see the pyramids from your house is the great thing, too.
Oh, yeah, you can. You can. I do live about a half a century away. So, no, it's amazing to me how much that's gone up in such a short time.
It really has. I remember my first apartment was a studio apartment, and we were a bunch of like ravers, so ravers, these go to these like electronic music shows in abandoned warehouses and stuff. So we just that was our main focus, is going to hear our favorite DJ or whatever.
Yeah, I can just picture you with a black light going. With little
all the dancing with little glow sticks and stuff. Yeah, that was that 50-inch wide pants and bead jewelry, sparkle. Yeah, it's just.
And that was yesterday.
Yeah. Well, hey, if you haven't seen the online campus this week, make sure to go watch that. But that was our main focus, is like we're paying for these desert shows we'd go to, or abandoned warehouse, whatever. And so we had I think it was $425 or $450, and we ended up having three of us sharing that for the studio apartment. And at one point there was 8 people living in a studio apartment. Goodness. And that was just it's sort of, for people without context, think like the hippie culture, only with like giant pants and sparkles and bead jewelry and colors. So yeah, it was sort of like that. But then we moved to a town. We kind of grew up a little, and we're like, okay, we're going to move to a townhome. We moved to a townhome in downtown Tempe, and I went there recently, And these areas where all these sort of 70s slump block townhomes and buildings were, they're now got massive, beautiful condominiums with all these amenities of like, gymnasiums and pools and all that. I'm like, oh, that would have been nice back in the day. But
yeah, well, it would have cost you an arm and a leg.
Well, it would have cost an arm and a leg. That's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see where it goes. Because at some point you just go, how can you keep paying for that? But somebody is, I guess. So,
but if anyone needs a roommate, just, contact M. Nystrom at pureheart.org.
So actually at this moment, so my wife's parents are, they're American citizens. Her brother's an American citizen, but they're Hispanic. They live in Mexico. They have a beautiful house in Mexico, but they come up here and, see family and have healthcare appointments.
So
and that
they're
type
living
of
with
thing.
you.
And so right now they're living with us.
How much do you charge them?
Well, what's amazing is they do cook, they
That's
do clean.
Gonna get you in trouble.
Yeah, right. They do cook and clean, and so we have some awesome, amazing food that they cook, and then they help take care of the dog.
That's their family contribution.
It's a family. It's that cultural thing.
Yeah.
And then my wife's brother also had come up here to try and start working the economy down in Mexico. He had a clothing business down there, and it wasn't going as well as he was hoping. Kept trying to make it work, and he saw kind of the trajectory. And so he said, I'm going to come to the States. And he actually just got a job at the new chip plant, the microchip plant, not like Frito-Lay.
The one on the 303.
Yeah, the one up on the 303. So as like an engineering deal. So that's cool. But he's also living with us, and the parents were gonna come up, and he was gonna go stay with an aunt, but then someone had to go stay with her, and there was none. So we have a full house right now.
So it's the 90s all over again.
It's the 90s.
Yeah, you're back to 8 people in a house.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's exactly
good. It's
right.
funny how things come full circle.
It's true.
Much like this segment, we're rolling right into the PHC podcast with special guests. See how I brought that full circle
love that. I love
all the way around? It was seamless.
Intentional.
Yes, it was like butter. All right. We got a great show for you today. Let's go for it.
So we're with John Spooner. John Spooner, you've been at Pure Heart Church. Tell us first, what's your title? What do you do?
Yeah, so I just took over as the junior high pastor. Before that, I was the associate youth pastor, doing a lot of social media, a lot of we have an app, so app development, stuff like that. But recently in September, I took over as the junior high pastor, so I get to hang out with 6th through 8th graders, and I get paid for it. And I don't know how that's got to be
so chill.
Once a week, shout out to teachers, because once a week is enough for me. Once a week for an hour,
that's fair.
That's great. That's enough.
Get enough of that energy that just, hey, I'm going to redirect you, pass you off to the teachers and parents the rest of the week.
Amen.
Yeah. You also, one of the cool things I don't think most people know that you do, but when we have holidays, what is one of the things that you lean into?
Man, during holidays, I get to get my extroverted self out. And so I get to be a part of like the welcome team. I get to pass the offering, which is so much fun.
But there's something more than that taps into your creative side.
Oh, I was like, I don't even know what I do. I create.
Well, that's fair. Most of it is Pure Heart.
Yeah.
Like we got like
so
12 different things.
Me and the creative team tag team merch. And so I've been designing and doing graphic design stuff for a few years now. And so me and Jill got to tag team on Easter merch. And so it's been awesome.
And Jill does our graphic design.
Yeah. Jill's our graphic designer. Yeah.
Media stuff, things we see on social media.
Yep.
And you were doing that for youth stuff for the whole time you've been here? Or?
Yeah, I was doing that for about 2.5 years. So I was on staff. I started coming to Pure Heart about 4 years ago. I was a part of a church plant. I was actually the youth director at a church plant that had no youth. So my job was really simple. Hey, text these 2 kids that show up sometimes. And so we would, so during COVID, COVID hit, and I went home for an extended spring break, and didn't come back for like 4, 5, 6 months back to Phoenix. And in that time, the church that I was at actually closed their doors. And so, that church was I was the young guy at the church plant, so I was learning all these different things and like learning all the creative stuff. And they're like, yeah, you can learn that. And so it was really cool because I felt like God was calling me to Pure Heart. And I had clicked on a Facebook Live from our pastor, Chris Moore, who's planting Valley Church. And I clicked on a Facebook Live, and I was like, Chris Moore. Like, I think he's from Phoenix. Well, I need a church to go to. And so I click on his profile. I'm like, Pure Heart Church? No way. I didn't know it was that close to, I was going into my junior year at GCU studying biblical studies. And I came to Pure Heart, and it was just so cool. My first service, I remember sitting there, and we started praying for another church. And I was like, what is going on? Like, I have never seen something like this before, where it's not ministry versus ministry, it's ministry and ministry, and we get to do it together. And so from there, I started volunteering with youth. I started interning under Ryan Windauer, our lead youth pastor, and from there, I got hired on in March, about 6 months later, to be our Heart Youth online director. So doing online ministry and doing graphic design and all the fun parts that go with that. And then really felt the burden to shepherd students. Yeah. And so in September, Ryan said, hey man, what would it look like for you to step into junior high ministry? And me and my wife prayed about it, and we just felt like that's what God was asking us to do. And here we are, that's 6 months later, and in the first school year. And yeah, it's incredible. It's been an incredible honor to serve in that role. So that's awesome. Yeah.
I love it. That's so cool. Yeah. Some of this merch stuff that you've put out has been great. I also just seen the growth in our youth ministry that, under both you and Ryan and Alyssa, and obviously it takes a huge amount of team of pouring into these kids, small group leaders and worship team and stuff. So it's not just one person doing it. I know it's easy to just give credit to like one or two people, but it's you guys help shepherd that team, help grow that team. It's been amazing to see what you're doing. And one of the crazy parts of year that you guys get to then navigate is coming up. Like it's coming up quickly, and let's talk about that a little bit.
Let's do it. Yeah, we have summer camp coming up the first week of June, and it's funny because I just came from a meeting of youth pastors that we all were praying for each other. We pray for each other every month, and we get together, kind of talk about ministry, and then next month will be our last one. And we're like, man, we really need an extended time of worship and prayer because we are going into camp season, and so we're so excited for camp. We're going up to Camp Pine Rock, and so Pine Rock has been this really just godsend for us because over the last few years we've been seeing a ton of growth, and it's shout out to our youth leaders. Shout out to, man, we have an incredible just church body that believes in the next generation, that allows us to equip our staff to be able to like have a bunch of staff on over youth, and so it's been incredible. It's such a team effort, but and then Pine Rock came along, and we were like, man, we're looking for a new camp home. And so Pine Rock showed up, and we were like, wow, this is not only an incredible campsite, but it's affordable, and they have air conditioning.
Oh,
praise
that's
God.
And especially in Arizona.
Especially in Arizona in the summer. And so we're going up to Prescott June 2nd through the 9th. Junior high campus is the 2nd through the 5th, and then high school campus is the 6th through the 9th. And so we're so excited. We're just expecting for God to move. We've seen, like, it's so cool because whenever we see like the Israelites being in the Old Testament, not to get all pastory on people, but when you see the Israelites and they're like, man, their biggest mistake was they forgot what God did. And so going into this season,
they were camping.
And they were camping, right? And so they were camping in the middle of nowhere. And so
in the desert,
in the middle of the desert.
There's more connections here than you realize.
Come on. And so we, it's so cool to just look back and remember what God's done in the past, and know that because he's been faithful in the past, he'll be faithful in the future. And so we're really excited. We're expecting that God's going to show up. We're expecting, it's been really cool because we have this over the last few years, as we've just wanted to be in the wake of our senior pastor Dan's vision of doing church together, being about the Big C church. We are actually going up to camp with another youth ministry. We did that last year. We did conference with another youth ministry this year. And so it's been really, really special to see just the fruit of unity and the fruit of doing church together. Not only like, hey, we get to like combine our budgets and dream bigger now, but it's also, man, when Jesus asks and prays to the Father that there would be unity in John 17, it's crazy that like there's actually spiritual blessing on that. And so it's really cool. And I believe that we're seeing just like the Holy Spirit pour out in a whole new way because we're chasing after unity with other churches. And so we're so excited.
I love it. So So there's parents that are going, hey, maybe I'm going to send my kid to youth camp. Yep. I'm not sure what that really entails. Besides, like, hey, I get a break from my kid during the summer,
which should be reason enough that somebody sends their kid to camp.
That's a solid reason. Yeah. Click the sign up button as soon as you see that go live on the website. But there's really actually more reasons for that, and kind of go into like why should. And what would somebody expect their kid to get out of something like camp?
Yeah. And I think it's really cool that we have 3 days, and we equate that to about 6 to 8 months of ministry. And so I think for a parent that's saying, man, what's going on with my kid? I think in junior high, I could speak to junior high parents specifically. Junior high is such a formative time for your students that, man, would you not want to set them up for success? If you're saying, hey, man, I want my kids to, I'm trying to live in this wake of, as for me and my household, we're going to serve the Lord and, bring up a child in the way that they should go so that when they're older, they should not depart from it. In the wake of trying to do that, why would we not set up a student for success? And so at camp, man, we bring in speakers from different places to allow for students to hear from different voices. Sometimes, man, it's awesome that students go to youth ministry and they hear me preach, or they hear Ryan preach, they hear people from our team preach, but it's super formative when somebody that doesn't know who you are, doesn't know your story, feels a burden from the Holy Spirit to say something that hits with students. And so one of the coolest things that we had happen last year is we had just a super Holy Spirit-filled leader come and speak to our students at camp last year, and it was just incredible. And he felt that he had a specific burden for someone very specific, dealing with a very specific thing. And it was so cool because when you and it ended up coming to fruition, and it was crazy. Like, could not orchestrate it, and for that girl, like, her life changed. And so, and I think, the reason to send a kid to camp is life change. And so I can remember back to my time going to summer camps and going to all these different things. It was my freshman year of high school that I gave my life to Jesus for the first time. I was on a pontoon boat in the middle of Kentucky, and somebody preached the gospel in such a way that just clicked for me. And I got off the boat and literally got baptized that night. It was the next year at a conference that was much like our youth conferences, or much like our camps, where I felt the burden and the call to go into full-time vocational ministry. And so what a parent could expect from camp is life change. And so I think it's in those areas where, and it's not that life change isn't happening on the weekly basis, but when you're removed from the distractions, when you're removed from the circumstances that are going on at home, when you're removed from your phone sometimes, holler at the junior high parents, we're taking away those phones, and it's going to be the best thing ever. Sure. And so, but the removal of distractions and going up and not having to deal with all the things that students are dealing with on a daily basis in their home lives or at school or being around the same friends really sets them up for success, really gives them a malleable heart for God to do something really incredible in their life.
So you're someone yourself that you'd go, my life would not be where it's at right now had I not attended camp.
I'm a byproduct of summer ministry. And so there's a lot more to that, but it was literally life change that happened when I was 15, when I got away from distractions, when I literally didn't have cell phone service, where I couldn't text my friends, like couldn't even text my mom to tell her I was getting baptized because we were in the middle of nowhere. And so I came home and my mom's like, hey, how's camp? And I was like, well, I got baptized and I'm a born again believer and all these different things. She's like, what? Like, I didn't think that's what I was getting at. I thought I was just getting rid of you for a week, And so it's really, and again, it's when we're removed from our distractions. It's when we're removed from our little g gods that we serve on a daily basis that people don't want to talk about, our phones, our social media, stuff like that, where God can really, really incredibly encounter us in a way that maybe we're not allowing him to encounter us when we have all those distractions.
So some amazing things that happen at youth camp.
Yeah.
Kids' lives impacted, change, connecting with others.
Yeah.
I see baptism stuff that happened after youth camp. I mean, just really kids going, I'm going to follow Christ. But also, there's some funny stuff that happens at youth camp too.
Of course.
I mean, you've got your youth pastor. You've seen some stuff. Can you let us in on that inside track of some of these some of these stories.
How much time do you have?
Well, that's as much as we need for the best.
So I've been going to summer camps with Heart Youth for this will be my 4th summer camp, and so before it's funny because Pine Rock really feels like the promised land in that we were going up to a campsite in Globe that had nothing. It was bare bones. We cooked for everybody, and we did all these different things. And man, that was like God.
And you had to take a satellite phone, if I remember right.
I had to take a satellite phone because there was literally no service.
If someone got hurt,
oh my gosh, we don't talk about those days. But and then we were the night before camp. I get a call, and our youth pastor said, "Hey, there's a fire.
Oh.
There's a wildfire.
Oh.
That's not in imminent danger, but like you can see it from the campground." And so it would be at night. It would be at night, and you just see the burning of like trees, and it looked like Sodom and Gomorrah. It was crazy. I was like, "What is happening?" And so
smell the smoke and stuff.
But we were still there, and we were safe, and praise God, it was an incredible time. But I remember it was like the last night of camp, and we're playing this game where our youth leaders went out, and each team had to like go find our youth leaders, and there were no lights, and so it was pitch black. They had to go out with their flashlights, and we have some pretty crazy youth leaders who were climbing trees and trying to make it. So it was very difficult. And I remember we're sitting there, and this 6th grade girl comes up to me, and she says, "John, there's a tarantula in my room." And I'm like, "There's not a tarantula in your room. It's probably a spider." And at that point, I had to ask for forgiveness because I was like a little short. But she's like, "No, John, it is a tarantula." I'm like,
"Yeah, young person, maybe she's a little dramatic,
I'm like, "You're being a little dramatic." Yeah. And so I'm like, "Fine, we can come check it out." And so I take Ryan with me, and we go to this cabin, and there is a tarantula that is this big.
Whoa.
And
for people that are just listening, how big is this big?
This big is, if you take your fist, it's your fist. And if you have a small fist, it's double your fist. So it is.
That's a big spider.
It was a huge.
I don't want that spider in my house.
And it was hairy, and I had never seen one before. And so we're like, "What do we do?"
Yeah.
And so there's a broom in the corner. I'm like, "I got to kill this thing." And so I'm looking at it, and it's climbing up this wall, and I'm just like looking at it. I'm like, "Okay, what do I do?" I'm like trying to be strategic, and I sweep it down onto the floor.
Oh no.
And then it goes missing. And I'm like, "Where did it go?" And I flip the broom over, and it's just a spider, massive tarantula.
Just chilling on the broom.
Just chilling on the broom. And I don't think I've ever in my life moved or reacted so quickly. I turn that broom over, and I just go, smack, 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 smack. And I just can't get over it. And I just remember, I'm like, wow, those were the formative years.
Oh yeah.
And that's where I say, man, we were not in the promised land. We are at Pine Rock now. We are in the promised land where we have locking doors, air conditioning, a pool. Oh my gosh.
You were a hero in battle though, let's be honest. You were a hero.
I had to be. Somebody had to step up. But it was a fun time, and man, God met us there, and God met us at Pine Rock, and it's just crazy because no matter where we were at, not to make it all serious and pastory again, but no matter where we were at, God met us, and God encountered us in a room that had no AC, that had 140 students in it, and we were all dripping sweat, but God encountered us, and it's so special that when you get to go away, and man, you got the fun memories that you get to look back on years later and be like, man, that was so cool, but then you get to look back and say, man, God really, really encountered us at summer camp and
did stuff and showed up.
And showed up.
So you were the hero. You were the person that saved this poor girl's camp experience, the young people. You were the hero there.
I've always taken 6th grade just a tiny bit more seriously now. Now that I know that maybe sometimes they don't over-exaggerate what they're going through.
Yeah.
And when they say there's a tarantula, I will maybe think about it twice.
You'll think about it twice.
So
we got time for like one more. What's one more crazy thing that happened at camp?
Man, this past year, it was so cool because we got to partner with a youth ministry out in Gilbert, and we were able to do ministry together. When we're looking at church, we're like, man, do we have the same goals? Do we have similar values? Do we have the same heart for our students? And so we partnered with the youth ministry in Gilbert, and it was so much fun. But we do this game, and it's called I can't remember the name of it, but basically you grab ropes around, you have one dog toy, basically rope, if you can picture it, and somebody is sharing that rope with you, and you get around
those
a circle.
Little short ones the dogs chew on?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And you're grabbing it, and you're forming a circle, and what you're trying to do is get the other people, and there's a trash can in the middle, and you're trying to get the other people to hit the trash can. So you're pulling, you're moving in like a circle, and you're trying to get them to touch. Well, that is the most serious camp game ever, because there were leaders that were just, I don't know what switch flipped, but they were ready. And so we did a leader round, and I just remember, and I was one of the leaders where the flip switched, and I was like, it's game time. I'm glad this isn't against students, because we're about to go in. And so I'm like wiping sweat from my brow, and I'm like just like getting in the circle, and I'm like pulling our youth leaders like left and right, and one of our youth leaders ends up getting us out. But it's crazy because kids are doing like front flips, they're doing back flips to avoid this trash can, and so we had sprayed just this mud, so we're all covered in mud. And I guess that's more of just like a fun thing that we do at camp. But again, when we're not distracted, when we put our phones away, it was cool, because when we went up to Globe and we had camp there, kids did not have service, and so the first day or so, they're like, I don't know what to do with myself. They're going through withdrawal. They're scratching their heads. They're like, what's going on? And then they're like looking through old pictures on their phone. They're like doing math problems on their calculator, because that's the only thing they can do. They're looking through past text messages, reevaluating what they've sent, and I'm like, guys, just put down your phone. And it's crazy, because you'll see middle schoolers and high schoolers start to just play cards.
That's
like,
cool.
And that seems just so like, like, oh man, like, doesn't that just happen? No, it doesn't happen. And so not having screens, not having to, students will thoroughly go up to camp, and they come home and they know how to play speed. They know how to play all these different card games. And, it's just so cool just to like sit back and watch and just see like groups of students play cards and do all the different things that they do up at camp. So
I love it.
Yeah.
So amazing things that are happening at camp.
Yeah.
When do registrations start opening up for camps?
Yeah,
usually
registrations are open now.
They're open now.
If you go
fantastic.
to the Pure Heart website, it'll be on pureheart.org/camp.
And it's like limited. Like they should do it as soon as possible, because there is a limited amount of space that you guys have for this type of thing.
So,
right? So
because of God's grace and because of the way that we've been growing, man, we are limited on spots. So junior high, we're limited on numbers. High school, we're limited on numbers. So make sure you sign up now. The great part about this is that you actually don't need to pay the full part down right now. You can actually pay a deposit and then pay it off as you keep going. And so and by the time we get to camp, like being paid off, but you put down a deposit, it locks your kid in for camp. They've got the spot, they've got the bed at camp, they've got like everything that they need, and then you don't have to have the full amount right now, which is super helpful. And so and we're ending. We have early registration. So if up until middle of May we're doing early registration, early bird 15, you get the best price that you can get for camp, and then after middle of May, it'll go back up to regular price.
Cool.
So yeah.
So there's one other thing I think is important to talk about, because there's some people that are listening right now and they go, it's great about kids. I'm glad they're, it's the youth pastor, I'm glad he's, blah, blah, blah. But they can't really connect to this. So let's give them something that other people can connect to. And that's about dogs. Dogs are something you and I actually have in common.
Yeah.
I have a dog named Wednesday, and she's a first-generation Labradoodle. She actually ended up on Pure Heart Church Online. The day we adopted her, I was like, I don't know what to do with this dog. She's going to be on camera. And it was a cute little dog. Yeah. It is now a massive dog, and she's only like 6-7 months old. But I got my dog, brought her to the church, and you were like, it was a rescue Labradoodle for context.
Which is a flex.
Yeah. It's
flex.
It's like, hey, I got a Labradoodle. I didn't pay the crazy price.
Rescue.
Rescue Labradoodle.
I remember you brought in this dog, and I was like, that's a Labradoodle. And I had grown up, all my family's allergic to dogs. And so we had grown up always having like hypoallergenic dogs. So we had a dog for a while that was a Newfoundland. It was a rescue, and my parents are all about rescue dogs. And I'm all about rescue dogs, but it was a Newfoundland giant Schnauzer mix. And so completely hypoallergenic. We love this dog. Like, it was just incredible. And then our next dog was a Labradoodle that was a rescue. And he's still alive today, still kicking it with my parents. And but then I saw your dog, and let's paint a picture here. Matt's walking around campus at Pure Heart Church Glendale, and this little tiny 8-week-old puppy is just following him around. And I'm like, Matt's been here a little too long. He thinks he owns this place. He brings the dog off leash.
I got a dog.
But this dog is just like trotting behind him like he's been his dog since day one. And I'm like, Matt, where did you get that dog? He's like, here's the thing. And Matt always has these crazy ways that he gets things. You know, I've heard that you were the guy that was hopping on Bitcoin before everybody else.
Bitcoin? I knew about Bitcoin when it was $16. I hate to say it, I didn't buy. Knew about it when it was in $1,200. Hate to say it, I didn't buy. $4,000. I'm like, I'm buying it. I don't care if I lose money.
Come on.
And I don't know where it is when someone's listening to this right now, but it's close to
I think right now we're at 75 grand now.
Yeah,
which
75
is crazy.
grand. So, you know.
So Matt's always got I got a story to tell you about how I got this specific possession. And so I'm like, dude, where did you get this dog? And he's like, well, I got it from an old town Scottsdale PetSmart. And I'm like, oh, cool. You paid like $6,000 for this dog. And he's like, $800. Like,
Spayed,
neutered, out the door.
Yeah.
Got the coupon book from PetSmart.
Little chip. If you get lost, they scan the chip on the neck. They're like, oh, this is who it belongs to. Yeah.
And so I was like, dude, where did you get this dog? Because my wife and I love dogs. And he said, well, dude, they do like a dog release. Like they took, like there was this rescue home, and maybe you could tell it better than I can, but there was this home in Gilbert, right?
Like a bad breeder type of
bad
deal.
breeder. Yeah. And so there's
Backyard
a bunch
breeder.
of Labradoodles, labs that got basically confiscated. And so they got put into the Arizona Humane Society. And so then that's where we come in, and I'm there, and we go that night. And I call my wife. Because
there's two siblings at that point.
Yeah, at that point there were two girls, and I forget their names, but they were there at the PetSmart. And I'm like, babe, we gotta go look at these dogs.
Because Labradoodle puppy ain't gonna be like rescue lab ain't gonna be hanging around a long time.
And I'm like, and I'm a deal finder. Deep down in my soul, I'm like, I need to find a deal. And you told me that tomorrow, that Friday, it was a Thursday. That Friday was half off.
I know. I was like. I bought it on the Thursday. I was like, do I wait till tomorrow? I'm like, I
don't know that's going to be there.
Yeah.
And so, I show my wife, and we go out to Old Town, and that's like a 40-minute drive. And so we like go out, and we're like, are we actually doing this? So we're calling my mom, we're calling her mom, we're calling all of our family to see, is this a good idea? Everybody's telling us no, but our hearts are saying yes. And so, but then my mom finally said, you know what? If you want a dog that your kids are going to be grown up with, right now is the best time to get a dog. So shout out to my mom, because that is the reason we got this dog. And so we go, and my wife's working on Friday, and I'm not working. And so I go the next day. So we go on Thursday. We see these dogs, adorable. They're 9 weeks old. I don't care what kind of dog it is. If it's 9 weeks old, it's going to be a cute dog. And so we go the next day, and I'm like looking for something that maybe a little bit more hypoallergenic. And so we see this dog. His name is Nathaniel. I'm like, that's the worst name for a dog ever. I'm sorry if you guys have a dog named Nathaniel. That's my personal subjective opinion, is that's a terrible name for a dog. But my old dog's name is Milo, right? So I'm like, I'm about the dog names. And so, so we go, and I'm like FaceTiming my wife because she's at work, and I'm like, babe, look at this dog, and he's so cute, and he's 8 weeks old, and all these different things. And so I remember I'm sitting there like for a few hours just playing with this puppy, and FaceTime my wife. I'm like, are we gonna do this? And she's like, I don't know, just wait until I get off. And she's gonna get off at like around noon, and I'll head over there. And a family comes up, and they said, actually, we have one other family that wants to look at him right now. And I'm like, it's now or never.
Yeah.
Sam, it's now or never. Are we getting this dog? And I just remember she said in the most stern voice, get him. And so I'm like, actually, we're going to take him. And so I'm signing the forms for him and all this different stuff. My dog had never met, or my wife had never met this dog before.
Wow.
And so
that's
the first
great.
time that she met, that's trust. And so the first time she met this dog was while we were there. And so come to find out that this dog is siblings with your dog.
Yeah.
And so that's what they think is it's the same time. They're the same age. And so we have dog. We're like, I don't know how this works out.
Yeah,
but
like dog,
I think you and I are cousins now.
Yeah,
but
right.
I think you and I are related
cousins,
now.
Yeah,
And
I think so.
Yeah. So he's a little black lab. So he doesn't have the doodle as much doodle in him. He's got a little wave on his back, but he's a black lab, and my wife's been wanting a black lab forever. Like she wants to like collect every color of lab, and I'm like, I don't know if that's the proper way to say that about dogs, but she wants like every color of lab. So now my entire Instagram algorithm is just Labrador Retriever dogs.
That's funny.
So yeah.
So the dogs now, this happened a few months ago. Yep. So they're 6-7 months old,
yep.
about
like 6.5 months
and
old.
I didn't anticipate how big this dog was going to be. I mean, I knew it would be like a medium. I figured a medium-sized dog, whatever. I haven't seen a picture of yours, but like mine is like, and she's fluffy. She looks like a small bear. Like it's a giant dog.
Yeah.
And not only is she huge? Yeah. Like my mother-in-law just came up from Mexico, and this is the first time she's seen her in person. She literally called her in Spanish a small bear. Two problems with this dog is I've got these they're little like tree things, little seeds that like fall off our neighbor's tree, and it's all over part of our backyard. And the dog loves to go back there and run through it, and it sticks to her entire fur. No. And then she tries to bring it back in the house or everywhere. If you try and vacuum up, they get clogged in the vacuum. Yep. So that's a challenge. But you go, okay, I'll just let her in and out of the backyard, whatever. We'll deal with that issue. But there's another issue that happens with Labradoodle puppies.
Yeah.
And them just being under about 1.5 years old, that they chew up absolutely everything. And puppies chew. Like, you got to expect that. I've had puppies before, grew up with them. I know they chew.
Yep.
It's next level. Like, she has chewed up our shoes.
Yep.
She's chewed up earbud cases. She's my CPAP machine, the whole like face thing, like pulled it out of the drawer. She opened the drawer, pulled stuff out,
smart dogs.
Pulled up, chewed up 2 pairs of my glasses, a pair of my wife's glasses. So a chunk of stuff, but has she chewed up anything in your house?
Yeah.
Yours.
So,
yours is a boy, though.
Yep. So we've got a boy. His name was Nathaniel. We renamed him. His name is Kobe. So my wife had a dog that was named Toby with a Y, and I love basketball. I love, sneaker culture. I'm like, Kobe, like Kobe Bryant. And so we named him Kobe EY. And so we love this dog, and he's great. And it's funny that you asked this because this morning, my wife's reading her Bible, and she loves reading like the Bible that she like grew up reading. Yeah. And so there's something nostalgic about reading the Bible that you like grew up reading.
Sentimentality? What's the word? Like
sentimental?
Sentimental. What is the plural version of that?
I have no idea. But it's sentimental, right? And so so she's reading her Bible, and she leaves to go get ready for the rest of the day, and she gets up from the table, and we have this slow feeder thing that my dog pushes around. It's like it looks like a bone, but it rolls. So it feeds him his food in the morning, so it distracts him.
Sure.
And, while we're getting ready and while we're working and whatever. And so she leaves her Bible up, and our dog, and this is why it feels personal, is because the dog is so dang smart. The dog is a genius.
They're crazy smart.
Like we're doing tricks with him. He knows how to heel. Like he knows how to walk and heel. He knows how to sit, lay down, settle. He knows like his house, his bed. He knows how to go to the door, stuff like that. So he's a genius. Like he's got he graduated puppy class. He got like the little graduation cap. And so smart dog. He gets up on the counter and eats. I'm not sure what. I think she's reading out of Psalms today. He eats Psalms. And, Pastor Brian Bloom on staff, he's the pastor over pastoral care, right? And he says, well, he's digesting the word. And I'm like, that is the most dad joke I've ever heard in my life.
That is such a dad
joke.
But
and he'll rip it up. So he's ripped up a Bible before. He literally pulls it off the bookshelf and just starts going crazy. But this time, he just ate it. And so later today, as we're recording this, he will most likely poop out Psalms. So I don't.
And your poor wife, she's just.
Oh, she's devastated. And I'm like, and she's like, we're getting rid of this dog and we're doing this. And I'm like, we're not getting rid of this dog. Yeah. And so, and then he looks all apologetic because he knows. And and then he's just like, please, like, don't get rid of me. And, so he's a great dog, but he's smart and he's crazy. But, I think every person that's within a year of getting married, because we had gotten him before we hit a year of marriage, will always just be like, man, we got that dog, and that was our first dog. And so I remember I have to remind myself, we're going to keep looking back and saying, man, that was a good dog, and then forget about these maybe little moments. But right now we're like, these little moments, we're going to get rid of this dog. So if any of you guys are looking for a dog, 60 pounds, lab puppy, he's 6 months old, smart as a whit, but we're getting rid of it. No, I'm just kidding. So
here's the thing: is my daughter, who's 8, she goes back and forth between this, like, she loves this dog and she hugs it and grabs its curly fur, whatever. And then the next day, the dog does something, it nips kind of at her because she's playing with it, and the dog's like, it's playing too, and
doesn't know the difference,
or it gets one of her things and chews it up. Or she left it somewhere. She's like, I hate you. The dog's name is Wednesday. I hate you, Wednesday. Next day she's loving on the dog. So it is that love-hate relationship. Most people, if you have a puppy, I think you understand love-hate relationship.
I love to hear what is going on in our youth ministry. I believe that the times we are living in right now are unlike anything we have ever seen before. Social media and the internet have completely changed the world in which kids are growing up, making it imperative that we share the love of Christ with our younger generations. And while there's a lot that we can teach the younger generations, there's also a lot that we can learn from them as well. So let's jump into our section of What We Don't Know, where we dive into some of the latest trends with one of our worship pastors, Brenna Pavkov.
So we've got this segment we do with Brenna, What We Don't Know, because Brenna is like, how many years younger? Like half our age?
I'm 24.
24, yeah. So half Heath's, no, not even quite, but...
No, I'm going to be 48 this year.
I didn't realize you were that old, I'm sorry.
When you say it like that, it doesn't hurt at all. That's not true.
I remember when I was like 40, I was like, and then I was 41, I was like,
there's something. There's the past 45 where you're just going, 50 is just you might as well just be 50, and then you're like, half a century. That doesn't make you feel old at all. What's funny is that you're mentally, you still think you're 18, 20 or what, and until you like trip or something, or you do something unthinkable like waking up. And you're like, I'm in pain, and that's when you actually feel it.
I had an old boss that he was probably about my current age when I was working for him. And I was probably about Brenna's age. And it was funny because he, in his mind, I love this guy. He's still a good friend of mine, but he, like, in his mind, he'd be like, it's like the 70s were just behind the corner, and him like in the roller rink and backwards roller skating, and like he was so cool, and the tricks he could do, man. And all that. And you're like, bro. And that same sort of thing where it's like he was in that. I get it now. I'm sorry, Steve.
And so there's a disconnection that happens.
I didn't mean to judge you.
No.
It is a disconnection that happens, and so because we're feeling that disconnection, we lean on you.
We do
to help guide the way for us.
Show us the path.
Yeah, tell us something we don't know.
Okay, so here's the thing. I love this generation because I feel like there's so much nostalgia for even like your guys' like generations, and like we've seen it in like in media with the 80s making a big comeback. We've seen it in fashion, and something that I think is so funny that's so trendy right now is the New York Times games. Do you guys know what the New York Times games are?
No.
So it started with Wordle, which I think you guys played Wordle when, we made a big deal about it in the office. We had a whole group chat going. I don't know if either of you were in it.
I never downloaded Wordle.
But Wordle, and you don't necessarily have to download, there's an app, but you can also just play it like in your browser. And it started with Wordle, which is where you have, I believe, 6 attempts to guess a word. And you don't know, that you get no hints to what this word is. They will just tell you if a letter is correctly placed then it's green. If it's a letter that's in the word but it's incorrectly placed, it's yellow, and then it'll gray out if the letter's not in there at all. And you just have to guess it.
It's like Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
I'd like to buy a vowel.
Without Vanna White.
Yeah.
But
Which
now,
that's kind of boring. Yeah.
there's like a whole, and maybe it's always existed, but it's just gotten really popular. There's a whole slew of these games, including a game called Connections. You guys, Connections either makes me feel like the smartest person in the world or really incredibly dumb, and there's no in between. And I think it's very cute that our generation is playing this game, because to me it just seems like a crossword puzzle, like something that maybe someone a little older would do. But all of my friends are obsessed with it. Our students play Connections. So I wanted to see if you guys would play Connections with me today.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is we're going to read out. There are 4 groups of 4, so there are 12 words total. I'm going to read them out, and off the top of our brains.
Thing for crib notes,
we're going to
write
try and
down?
make 4 groups that make sense out of these words.
Can we do a Venn diagram? No.
I think we should only try and solve like one group, because I could honestly I either get it right away or I spend like an hour on this, and I have not looked at the connections today. But the words are mean, girls, in, ounce, curb, plan, parachute, gutter, gal, rule, great, fleece, aim, cal, intend, manhole. And you have to create 4 groups of 4, how those words are connected to each other. So just looking at these words, I have an idea of a group that could potentially exist. I also see how they might try to trick us, because they do put in words, especially next to each other, that seem like they would go together. Like right away you get mean and girls. It's trying to make you think of the movie, but I guarantee you mean and girls don't go together.
And so, mean manhole, like.
So my guess would be, I think in, ounce, gal, and cal probably all go together, because those are like tools that you would use to measure something.
See, I thought cow and
Like
In-N-Out
inches,
burger.
Ounces, gallons, calories.
Okay.
So I'm going to submit it and I'm going to see.
Okay, and so we're submitting.
And that was a group of 4.
that was a
It
group
says
of 4.
unit abbreviations.
This actually looks kind of fun.
You only get 4 mistakes. So if you completely mess it up.
Ooh.
I make more than that in the first 10 minutes of waking up.
And some days I don't. There's no grace
Now,
in this game.
everybody has the same one?
Everyone has the same one for
each
the day.
It's it's like the crossword puzzles.
Wordle, or-
from
okay.
back
Or
in the-
Wordle,
yeah.
yes.
I've heard about like the Wordle thing where like and again, I haven't played it, but that there's like people that, people actually get really, really angry if someone gives away the Wordle.
I used to. I'm over Wordle now, but don't ruin connections for me.
Don't ruin connections. Okay.
Don't ruin connections.
This looks, people can't see it, but it looks fun. It's like a grid.
You guys should all go play
little
it.
tic-tac-toe, and then each of these words is kind of in one of the tic-tac spots.
And I should mention too, it gets harder. So there's 4 different groups. I believe it's like purple, yellow, green, and maybe there's
But
another.
isn't it the
purple,
process of
yellow.
elimination? Because now you're down to like,
Yeah,
you
so
eliminated 4.
Yes. And so usually by the end, you're getting the hardest group, and it's just because there's only 4 left, but you would just not believe how they're connected. You're like, that doesn't even make sense. It's like words that you could end with, that could have ended with ly. And it's like, well, that doesn't.
Do you get extra points if you got that hard group first?
Nope.
No.
No, and it's all bragging rights. You don't get anything for playing this game, but
And
Do
so
you
it
get to
is.
like
people
compare
love
your
it.
scores?
No, I missed this part. Do you have to put them in the same number? It's the same number in each group, or it could just be a different number for each group?
no, it's 4 groups of 4.
4 groups of 4. Okay,
Yeah.
you did say that.
So how often do you get all 4?
Okay, it depends if I cheat. Sometimes.
I don't think that's
Sometimes.
Same could be
Yeah.
said with crosswords.
I actually got the highest marks on my SATs. I did cheat.
Yeah. It's like watching Jeopardy and then watching a replay of it and knowing all the answers.
Right?
Like, you are so smart.
I don't know
Which
if
is,
it's entirely cheating.
What's the one where he keeps going back in time? Groundhog Day.
Groundhog
Day. And
Yeah.
he's like,
and he
naming
says
all
the answer right before it's even asked.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's technically cheating. Sometimes they'll use words that have multiple meanings. So I will look up the definitions of words to see if there are meanings
It's educational.
that I'm not as familiar with. Like this is an example. The Wordle the other day was Sally, and that made me mad because I thought that was a name. But if you look up the definition, it's also like a sea term. So I will sometimes go.
Sally.
Yeah.
What-
Like a sailor or something. I should know this because I did
right.
Google it. Let's find out. Sally definition. I was so mad. I felt like that was a cheap Wordle. It shouldn't have been Sally.
She came to work pretty worked up. Like it was not it was not
like
fun.
Flummoxed.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one says a sudden change out of a besieged place against the enemy.
Oh.
A sortie?
A sortie. Wow, that feels like it could be a very interesting
Make a military sortie.
Military sortie.
They sailed out to harass the enemy. So
there's a sailing part.
Yeah, that's where I was getting it from. I was like, I swear it had something to do with like the sea. But anyway.
And how many of the kids, like, because obviously some of that's complicated. How many of these kids are getting it, do you think?
I feel like a lot of, so it was my students that taught me what Connections was. It's all these high schoolers that were playing this game, which to me, I'm like, this doesn't feel like homework to you guys. But they love it. And I feel like sometimes they get it like way quicker than I do. So we're raising a generation of really smart kids who like to play the New York Times games.
That's great.
Yeah,
right.
so,
Nostalgia.
Yeah, go play Connections.
Do you remember playing those crossword puzzles in the newspaper or ad-lib games in magazines? I remember when I was a kid, I always used to try to figure those word games out when my dad was finished reading the newspaper. And while I don't miss getting the ink from the paper all over my hands, it was fun to figure out those crosswords with my dad. And speaking of dads, let's bring in our resident Pure Heart dad, Alex Friend, for a great new selection of his finest dad jokes.
So we have this segment that we call Heard It From a Friend, and it's because you are Alex A. and Friend is your last name.
Why do you have to explain it?
Well,
where's the mystery?
The mystery, but they gotta know the why.
Yes. Yeah. So you are a friend.
Correct.
So heard it from a friend.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he's also a
Clever.
friend of ours. So
Maybe not after this.
Yeah, it depends on the jokes.
And so the segment is telling some of your dad jokes that you share with the band in their ears right before worship starts.
Yeah. Yeah, I like to, I don't know, sometimes the people get so concentrated on their parts, they get so serious, and it's like,
You just want to throw them off.
let's put a smile on the face.
So if the band starts, oh, we missed our cue.
Yeah. And then you get a joke about it. Perfect. Anyways, what do Alexander the Great and Winnie the Pooh have in common?
Great. Honey.
Same middle name.
I was hoping that wasn't it.
That's
thank you, Alex the Friend.
yeah.
Okay. Since we're kind of diving into history, what was a more useful invention than the
A historical figure.
Well,
Did you not know that?
Back in 1812, Winnie the Pooh conquered most of.
He's fallen out of the the copyright deal. So
Really? So he's
that's why they made that like scary movie about Winnie the Pooh like a couple years ago. Is because now like it's like you can't. It's not copyright
What's
anymore.
funny is that someone was actually waiting for that. They were like, I cannot wait
They
till
had
Winnie
the
the
script
Pooh.
written, and they're like, now's the day.
Yep,
Yeah.
today's my
Finally,
moment to
inner peace.
I think I
shine.
heard there's supposed to be a Mickey Mouse one that's going to come out
Oh
too.
my
Because he's about to fall out of
goodness.
the
That's
thing. So
great.
yeah, probably there's people that have now
Yeah.
been like, that's the thing I'm planning on. So
Oh boy.
So we're talking about. Oh gosh, that's painful.
Yeah.
Yes, not at all
So-
related, but to continue,
To continue about
What?
history.
What
I'm
was-
sorry. Were we stealing your thunder?
Yeah.
I'm here to serve. What was a more useful invention than the first telephone?
The last.
I know this one.
The second telephone.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's fair.
That
Yeah.
would have been kind of dull. Yeah.
Yeah, just
Okay. Okay, this one's a little participation, so bear with me.
What have we been doing thus far? Yeah.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Hatch.
Hachu.
Bless you.
Oh gosh.
Oh, that's yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
That
That's
was that historical too?
Yes,
Yeah,
it was.
that's-
Yeah.
where it
It
came
comes
from.
from.
Is that
It
how
comes
we-
from the when people sneeze, you usually offer them a blessing.
Yeah.
it
That was
came from the
invented
plague,
in
right?
1819.
Oh, not the plague.
But I did heard that. Yeah, that it's like they thought it was like they were like sneezing out a demon or something like that, and so like, hey, that they're blessing.
I've
you.
been there.
I don't know if it's right. It's
I think that's where we need to cut.
It was really bad sinus infection.
It's one of those. It's one of those statements that you go like you just confidently say, and everybody goes, "Oh wow, that's great history," and then you at some point Google it and you go, "Oh no, that's just some
Yeah,
story."
I was,
That was
way
not.
off.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, thank you for
Yeah.
that. I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
You are welcome.
Yeah, thanks. Alex the Friend.
I just want to say thanks so much for listening in with us today. We have a lot of awesome episodes coming up that you are not going to want to miss. So if you like our podcast, make sure that you follow and subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. We love you, Pure Heart family, and we will talk to you next Tuesday.